Rise and shine. It's Monday. Get up. Get some cafe. Get something going. Get your microdose on, your bulletproof coffee, whatever's getting your day going, your meditation, your positive thoughts. Whatever you got going on today, it's Monday. Welcome back. Good to be back with you on Monday. Pretty excited about this week. We got a lot coming up. It was Mother's Day yesterday. Hope everybody had a good time celebrating their moms, and happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there. And what are we talking about today? We got some psychedelic news to talk about today because, we do a lot of this devoted to cannabis news, but we don't really touch on psychedelics as much as we should. But we do run this is the Cannadelic podcast. So we do want to talk about, the psychedelic reform movement a little bit, at least, and how we're trying to be part of it. And this is a big part of what we do with our events. If you don't know, this is the Cannadelic podcast, but we also run events, the Cannadelic Miami events. And our next one is going to be over at FIU, Florida International University. And why is that so important? We had the first Cannadelic at a convention center, but why is it so important to have it at a university? Well, because that's how we, affect change here. We are trying to legalize this plant medicine, and we have to use every avenue possible. One of those big avenues is research. So while we're looking at things like psilocybin or general psychedelic legalization on the federal level, looks like it's going to be very difficult to move that needle, even though there's a lot of initiatives. We do have the marijuana model, or the cannabis model, to look at and learn from when we're trying to legalize psychedelics. Not only do we learn what to do and not to do on the business side, but we also learn what to do and what not to do on the legalization side. So if it's difficult to go to the top level, especially because Biden, and not many people know this, I know I tend to beat it to death, but Joe Biden is one of the architects of the war on drugs, and he was one of the initiators of the RAVE Act in 2003, which generally made it less safe at raves and parties where people are taking psychedelics, because it eliminated the harm reduction services that could be on site, and it makes the venue liable for them. So it made it very difficult for venues, and it made it more dangerous because you had a lot of people selling things that were not tested. So I don't have the greatest faith in the Biden administration to do anything, but there are a lot of people behind, Joe Biden, that are for legalization, both cannabis and psilocybin. So what do? We're trying to do it on the state level, right? We're going state by state, trying to legalize psilocybin, psychedelics, whichever way possible. Each state is learning from the cannabis side, where they did the same thing, with California with Prop 215 in 96, and then Colorado, Washington State, and Oregon. Everybody is moving along at their pace from their locality, and it's looking like the same thing is happening with psilocybin and psychedelics in general. So in New York, they have about a month left in their legislative session, and they've had this big discussion about adding a psychedelics bill. So they have Assembly members Linda Rosenthal and Pat Burke. They talked about they have competing proposals for legalization of psychedelics in New York, right? And Rosenthal goes on to say they have more than enough evidence from 7,000 years of use that psychedelics are effective, but also very mainstream universities where researchers say, yes, this works. That's enough for me. Let's stop with the interim steps We've waited long enough. Well, she touches on something really interesting there. Not only is there all this anecdotal evidence from 7,000 years of psychedelic use, there's also a lot of research being done at universities. Mainly Johns Hopkins is one of the places where they're studying MDMA, psilocybin, and other psychedelics. It's probably the one that's most in the news. You also have University of Alabama at Birmingham doing a lot of research, and lots of universities across the country that are opening up to psychedelic research, clinical trials, and researching existing data. So we're hosting the Cannadelic Miami event at Florida International University. And Florida International University does have a psychedelic program, but it's a psychedelic history program. It's not a research program where they're actually studying the effects of psychedelics on people, on animals, on anything, really. They're not studying the actual science of psychedelics, more of the history. So doing an event at FIU and bringing in all these researchers, and we are bringing in the top researchers for psychedelics from around the country. What we're hoping to do is shine a light on that. And if we bring enough people out to FIU and FIU sees, man, there's a lot of interest in this, maybe they'll start doing research there. Maybe if other universities look at this event and see, wow, look at this. This is on campus. Look at all this interest across the board, not just from faculty and students, but from researchers. We're going to see researchers coming from around the country just to come and see, this event. And it could actually lead to a psychedelic application course or psychedelic research at FIU. And the more universities that jump on with this, the more research we'll have, the more legitimacy it will have, the more ammunition the states will have when they're trying to legalize. And there are a lot of states that are that have different psilocybin or psychedelic initiatives. Some of them exclude certain things like peyote because of its endangered nature or its endangered status. But for example, Connecticut, they sent the governor a large bill on Tuesday that includes provisions for the state to set up certain patients with access to psychedelic assisted treatment using substances like MDMA and psilocybin. So Connecticut lawmakers bill on Tuesday, right? So looking to increase access to psychedelic assisted treatment. Colorado Senate approved a House-passed bill, so that means it's passed two chambers, to align state statutes to legalize MDMA prescriptions if and when the federal government ultimately permits such use. And then they sent that measure to the governor. In Maryland, they sent the bill to the governor for a state fund to provide cost-free access to psychedelics like psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine for military veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. That's in Maryland. And what I like about that is it's very close to Washington, D.C. And lawmakers are very keen on taking care of veterans, at least publicly. So up in Maine, they approved a bill last month to create medical psilocybin program in the state, but the House has refused to go along in the latest edition of Divided America. Also last month, Georgia lawmakers advanced a bipartisan resolution that calls for the formation of a House study committee to investigate the therapeutic potential of psychedelics like psilocybin. The governor of Utah signed a bill in March to create a task force to study recommendations for psychedelic drugs. Missouri House Committee held a hearing that on a GOP-led bill to legalize a wide range of psychedelics for therapeutic use. Washington state legislature recently sent a bill to the governor's desk that includes a proposal to direct $200,000 in funding to support a new work group to study the possibility of legalizing psilocybin services in the state. Hawaii, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Oregon. Oregon is actually um, they're trying to put equity into the bill that they already have legalizing psilocybin to make sure that it's the licenses, just like the marijuana industry, aren't dominated by a few very wealthy individuals or companies. And California, Washington State. Meanwhile, in Pennsylvania, a bill meant to promote research into the therapeutic potential of psilocybin mushrooms for certain mental health conditions may be in jeopardy. The sponsor saying that the chair of the Key House Committee is expressing reservations, even though the legislation was amended in an effort to build support. So Pennsylvania, I know that the lieutenant governor is very big on mushrooms, Fetterman. He is running against Dr. Oz for U.S. Senate right now. Or I'm sorry, Mehmet Oz, who's got some, I'm not going to get into it, but come on. But I was moderating a panel with Fetterman, and Fetterman decided to say, we were, and this is at the last year's Pennsylvania Cannabis Festival, and we were about to end the panel, and Fetterman stops everything and says, hey, can we talk about mushrooms first? So I know that there is support in Pennsylvania, but there's also seems to be a lot of pushback. Even Texas is trying to study the medical risks and benefits of psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine for military veterans. And on the congressional level, they sent the letter, lawmakers sent a letter to the DEA urging the agency to allow terminally ill patients to use psilocybin. Should probably allow them to use DMT. That would probably be a little bit better for end-of-life care there. And then New Hampshire, lawmakers filed a measure to decriminalize psilocybin and all drugs. All drugs. So if you are, and don't forget, in Florida, we also have Michael Grieco filed a bill to legalize psilocybin here. And I believe that bill would need to be reintroduced, but don't quote me on that. I have a feeling there'll be quite a few being introduced here. I'm not sure who is going to do that, but you'll be the first to know on the Cannadelic podcast. So you got a long list of states here that are pushing for at the very least, research into the benefits of psychedelics so that they can, or the detriments of psychedelics so that they can decide whether they want to make it legal or not. But there is a groundswell push for the legalization of psychedelics. How that's going to look, what that's going to, is it going to be prescribed by a doctor? Do you have to be in a clinical setting? Will people be able to grow their own mushrooms? Is it going to be regulated like cannabis, where you have to have a special license to get it? What type of mental health services are required, or will there be, some required? It's a very kind of gray area, because psychedelics kind of unlock your mind, and sometimes people without proper guidance or who are in an unfortunate situation where they can't change their circumstances, that the mushrooms tell them, hey, you should change your circumstances, and they can't, can lead to some serious issues. So we have to be very careful how we approach the legalization. And to me, the key to it all is education on how to consume these substances. Education faces a lot of challenges these days, not just banning math books, but education faces a lot of challenges because of all the misinformation and uneducation that is out there. It is very difficult for people to tell what is true, what isn't true, what is science, what is propaganda, what is just clickbait. It's a wacky world when it comes to education. So I think we face an uphill climb on educating people, but in person, face to face, at these events like Cannadelic Miami, hosting them at established universities, bringing in top researchers and putting them in front of the people, I think is one of the best ways to advance this legislation, to advance this change, because I saw it in cannabis. I saw people like lawmakers and people that were totally against cannabis meet the people that it affects the most and have their opinion changed. And that's not something you see very often in politics, opinions changing. So between meeting people that have been, personally affected and hearing from well-respected researchers at well-respected universities at a university, I think it's a good way to start moving things forward. So if you want to come out and be a part of it, cannadelicmiami.com. You can get some tickets. You can be a sponsor of the event. We have quite a few sponsors coming on. And I'm excited about the types of sponsors coming on, the types of companies that are supporting this type of event. So I'm really excited about it. And I hope that everybody's going to come out. It's July 9th and 10th at Florida International University. And that is in Miami, kind of near the airport where the other event was, only now we're on campus. So bring your togas. I don't know. I'm not comedy this morning. Just straight up facts today. Well, anyway, I hope everybody is having a. Who's talking about Richard Grieco over here? I kind of wish he would show up at the Johnny Depp trial. I felt like Penhall should have showed up and like helped him out, right? Peter DeLuise. All right, I got some inside jokes in there at the end. So hope everybody has a wonderful Monday, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace out. Have a good night. Have a good day, and see you soon.